Now, I personally, I realize that the machine that I'm bringing this to you from is a Windows-based machine, but that doesn't mean that I don't run a Linux box in the other room. And I do. I have shared some images on my Facebook account of the whole. Not this particular one. It's my alternative account. Because I have a tendency to get disciplined about the stuff. So I have figured out how to bypass being disciplined by them and sabotage their punishments by having a backup account. But do 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 do. If you want to see I have to actually find it in here because there's a lot of other related photos of other things that I've been intriguing me. Like this particular uh, fascination that happened, and this person, is, you know, I forget the term, but there's chimeras and there's mosaic. The person is a mosaic. It's a very interesting form of genetics that came out, and of course I'm saying something about my distaste for fashion as well. But let me continue on down and find what I'm looking for. Oh yes, I made a joke about this particular XKCD. I basically said that I aspire to be the guy in 2051. I do. I want to be that guy. There we go. Bragging rights by some of you. But the kernel needs to be customized. Firefox should be LTO'd and empty tree rebuilded with all of my hardening flags that I've selected with against buffer overruns. But that is my gentoo Linux box. Do you notice the sheer amount of RAM available? It should actually be double that. I don't know why it isn't all showing up, but there's at least it's at least recognizing half of it. I don't know why the other half isn't showing up, but that's enough. Extreme amounts of RAM. And there you go. You can see my hardware. You can see the CPU, the GPU. You can see the shell. It's probably a little bit out of date because it's updated, and the kernel's probably a little bit out of date in that because obviously I've been editing, and emerging. But I just got around to making an edit as well that I found to be pretty based, and it was. Oh yeah, yeah. Hold on. I was reading about this particular dispute. I have a disagreement with Steven Pinker. You know, myself, and I would just say that as a person who believes that learning plays a pretty key role in everything, and that nurture is more important than nature. That I I just I don't believe in the tabula rasa concept of human nature. That would not be my actual position, like, which is more like there is no tabula rasa in really any species that we know of, but like that philosophical concept of human nature comes, like, humans of all species are the closest to it. And you know because of that, Steven Pinker's book kind of fell flat because it kind of seems to accuse us of the mentality that you can just take a person and turn them into whatever you want, so long as you are able to control their entire environment. And that's just not the position that we believe in at all. But I mean, the variations that we see in, for instance, like language around the world should, be pretty indicative of the reality that learning plays a pretty key role in the human that comes out, at the end of the day. I mean, and the environment that somebody is raised in plays a pretty key role in what, their behavior ultimately becomes when they're fully grown up. I mean, one half of the world uses what we, and that's only speaking English, would jokingly refer to as moon speak, because it might as well be the speech of people on the other side of the planet to us. And I know rudimentary bits of Japanese myself, but certainly I'm not able to speak the language. Like, but you see what I'm saying? Like, if I had been born on the other side of the planet, things would be very different as far as that's concerned. I mean, I would have gone up through a completely different educational experience. My family would have spoken a completely different language and everything. And it just, I don't agree with Steven Pinker about the whole idea that there's been a denial of human nature. I think that unfortunately there's been the exact opposite. There's been a tendency to talk entirely too much about the role that human nature plays in things, and it's been that way all along. I mean, the hereditarians you know have wanted to do that for a long time, and that's just the reality of everything. And so I, however, am rambling, but I do have that up and running, and I just learned something today that I wanted to share with you. Now, I just went in with Nano and I edited the RC parallel and uncommented the line, RC parallel equals, and it was set to no. And so I uncommented it and then changed it to yes. And now, you know, this isn't me, but it isn't me, but I can show you OpenRC can beat the boot time of systemd. I mean, look at that. Look how much further it is than everything else. The only one that's even is faster is Void with, Run It. But, you know, it is now beating systemd, what systemd would be on my gentoo box. And, I, 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 I now look at, by the way, the Arch, Linux uh, wiki as the wiki for whatever Gentoo Linux hasn't actually documented properly on, the Gentoo Linux wiki. But yes, I found a Stack Overflow thread about what to do and how to edit it, and I went in and I uncommented and enabled parallelization in OpenRC on my Gentoo Linux box. So now it boots a few seconds faster, and now it would be faster than soystemd. Now, I don't like the term soy dev, but I will say that I have started using it to bash a certain group of developers myself, and that despite my distaste for this particular term, and because of the fact that I am a fan of H Bomber Guy and the soy boy phenomenon is obviously bullshit. It does. It is the term that has emerged in the computing space for somebody that basically writes bloated, running, inefficient, code that uses way too much memory. Soy devs, they're plaguing the world of software. Now, I would just say that I've run across people in the IT space too that will say, "But computers really will get faster. Why should we worry?" And it's like it's very easy to have a blind spot when when you're making all that money hand over fist as a developer, because you don't see the reality that it puts everybody else through the ringer of having to build a system prematurely. What it would see the problem that writing slow loading and slow performing code creates is that it kind of puts pressure on everybody to upgrade their systems every 5 years or so, and that that's not good. Basically, I mean, if people would, and I'm not saying write everything in assembly, but one of the variants of C++, C sharp, C, not a big deal. Write it in Rust, is fine too as a language. Those two are pretty fast and everything, and you know uh, don't issue static typing, because computers really, the process of resolving ambiguity for dynamic loading typing would actually make the computer run slower, since it has to figure it out for you. And you may see the languages that are statically typed as requiring quite a bit of convention, but the reality is that by resolving these ambiguities for computers, you will actually speed them up, since they don't have to solve that problem themselves.